Well, we got to talk about Julie Ertz and her return to the United States women's national team. Welcome back to Julie Ertz. It's been a while. And look, I'm just gonna hit you with the easy kind of maybe softball lobbed kind of question. Just first reactions, Lisa, when you saw that Julie Ertz was listed back on the United States women's national team roster.
First reaction when I read the name Julie Ertz, Sandra, I've got to be honest with you. I was like, what? Should I read this again? I did. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Thought my mind was just giving me what my heart wanted to see. No, it was real. All the letters spelled out correctly in the right order to prove that Julie Ertz is on this roster. I was overcome with giddy emotion, I'm going to say, because this is a player. I did not think that we were ever going to see Julie Ertz play soccer again. I think that she finished Tokyo Olympics in 2021 and she gave her blood, sweat, and tears for that Olympics run and that tournament. She was playing injured. She was giving everything she could on that pitch. She then starts a family with Zach, her husband, and they welcome into the world a new little baby boy. And then she gets traded to Angel City, and we hadn't heard a peep. We hadn't heard anything. The public had not heard anything from Julie Ertz. And I thought she has turned a new page in her life, and this might be the end. This could be the end. And then as more and more time went on, I mean, it's been almost 2 years since we have last seen Julie Ertz wearing a soccer kit on the field, lacing up them boots. And because of that, I was like, we're not going to see her anymore. She's going to slowly just announce her retirement, and we won't ever get to see that. She's back. She is back, baby. And she is, from what we've heard, better than ever at this point. Now, only time will tell what that sees, but I am personally, as a fan, excited to get to watch Julie Ertz play soccer again, because I didn't think I was ever going to get that opportunity.
All right, well, let's stay with that energy for a little bit. Yeah, like in terms of just, fans of the sport, fans of the league, fans of the team. I think for fans who are looking at that kind of news dropping and seeing that name on the roster, you're elated, like 100%. Like it's like, especially combined with all of the, perspectives of her possible evolution away from the sport, right? So I think in terms of the time, listening to you go through the timeline for Ertz and her sort of extended absence from this team. I mean, I'm doing this episode and I'm in my Red Stars kit, one of the thousands of them that I have, right? But I'm just thinking back to like her playing time in 2021, injuring herself, I think in the opening 20 minutes of the first game of the 2021 season, and just being shut down. Didn't play a single minute for club after that injury. Did come back mid-year for those Tokyo Olympics. And I think for you and I, when we launched Attacking Third, it was around the Olympics, and we remembered watching those performances by the national team in Tokyo.
Those 4 a.m. kickoff times.
Take me back, right? And just sort of, noting like, hey, there's a number of things that are off on this team, and perhaps one of them is health, right? And fitness. And then they ended up winning the bronze medal, and then we just didn't see Julie Ertz anymore after that. Not only did she step away to obviously continue her rehab, but then she was away on maternity leave. So it was like working her way back from injury, then starting a family, and now here we are. It's 2023. So I think there's a number of different perspectives out there around seeing a name like Julie Ertz return back to the roster and to the national team. And I think obviously one of those is, folks who are excited about it. And then I think there's another one where folks are confused by it.
Right. Yeah.
Honestly. And they're just kind of like, wait a minute, like when and how and why?
Why? How? I think that's a big one. How is a big one, because as we know, and we've talked about so much on here on A3 and with each other, when one comes in, one also has to leave. There's only so much space on a roster. And now Vlatko Andonovski did give us 26 players for this camp, knowing that only 23 will suit up for each of the friendlies, and only 23 are going to the World Cup, it's still, I mean, when we talk about wanting new players to get into the roster all the time, it's okay, who are they kicking out? Whose spot are they replacing? So after the Ertz news, I mean, people in our chat saying, hey, we thought it was April Fool's joke, or we weren't sure. I mean, yes, it was like shock, excitement, and then how? How is she ready? People haven't seen her. When you look at someone like a Tierna Davidson, even who was coming back from injury, it was like, okay, we've seen them play. We've seen her get minutes or go into training, and we just saw her with Chicago Red Stars, and Casey Kruger, another one coming back from maternity leave. But for Julie Ertz, we hadn't seen her. She never showed up to Angel City from our understanding. She was then a free agent in the NWSL, didn't re-sign with anyone. And even when US Soccer released this roster, they put the player's name and then in parentheses, the club team that they play for, their caps and their goals at the international level. Next to Julie Ertz, it says unassigned. This player unassigned. And we know how much of an emphasis Vlatko Andonovski and the international game put on playing at the club level for reps, for experience, for getting up to game fitness, and she hasn't. And luckily, there was a little bit of a explanation during media availability from the press releases saying what she has been doing and why Vlatko Andonovski felt she deserved to be called in, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the initial release, you see the positions, the players listed at those positions. You see their number of caps. You know, if they've scored a certain amount of goals during their time with the national team. But there's also their club affiliation as well, right? Whether that's an NWSL club or if you're Lindsay Horan, Olympique Lyon, and in this case, Julie Ertz, unattached, right? And that's something that we haven't seen in quite some time. And as far as my memory is, you know, in my recollection, the last time this national team program had somebody listed unattached or unaffiliated with the club was way back in the day with Abby Wambach.
Yep,
And
I was going to say Abby.
She ended up going to the 2015 World Cup. And perhaps there was, you know, similar response, reaction, and or narrative around that, you know, like, hey, like this is a player who's, you know, how is this player maintaining their fitness, or how is this player maintaining their form leading up to the biggest stage in the world, right? And how are they going to look? Well, she ended up sort of being that player kind of coming in and off of a bench, right? It had a little bit of a different role in that 2015 World Cup. And that team ended up going all the way and lifting the cup. And so I think, you know, folks, maybe if short memories and victories kind of dust things away sometimes, right? And people don't remember that. But it brought that up for me. I was like, okay, so we're looking at Ertz returning, and right now it's listed as unattached, which I think it was important to have the media availability with Andonovski immediately following the roster drop, because he essentially alluded to you know, the fact that Ertz is in ongoing conversations about returning to club play. There's no indication on when or who or what that's going to be or when that's going to be announced. But the implications that are coming out of the press conference is that she will also be playing club soccer in the lead up to the World Cup. Now it was, you know, a lengthier conference, I think, with Andonovski after the roster dropping. So we got to hear a lot from him, a lot about Julie Ertz. The press was quite full of questions about that, myself included. But also heard a lot about from a lot of feedback on Casey Kruger and in her arrival, asked about that as well. And it's we're supposed to hear from Julie Ertz once these you know, the teams get together and get ready to go ahead for the April friendly. So there's a anticipation for April 8th, and that she'll be able to speak on some things in that Austin friendly. But she did put out a statement as well to media, and some of us have gone ahead and tweeted it out. And she says as follows: it's very exciting to be back with the team again, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity. I have to work out my details in regards to my club situation, but I'm very thankful to Zach, my family, and US Soccer for the amazing support that they have provided to get me back to this point. I've been training hard, excited to see where I'm at physically and getting better each day. I'm going into this camp the same way I always have, to compete with the best women in the world. So that's her kind of short reintroduction, I think, back into this training camp mix. And I think understandably so. I look, it's a big year. There's a World Cup, and I think some of the discourse is healthy around um, player inclusion or player rotation in the buildup in this shorter and shorter timeline to the World Cup. So I think for folks who have been following and listening along and listening to that, the head coach and Andonovski and the staff saying placing the emphasis and value on club play,
Yeah.
and then seeing the return of a player like Ertz unattached to a club, I think it is jarring or confusing for some. And for others, maybe it just makes a whole lot of sense. I think if you're comparing like apples and oranges, and if the one example is Abby Wambach, who's the greatest forward in US soccer history, excuse me, the greatest goal scorer in US soccer history based on stats and total goals scored, then are we looking at somebody like Julie Ertz, who's
Right.
essentially the greatest defensive midfielder for the team of all time? Like,
Completely.
no.
And I don't like, as much as I told you, like, wow, I was shocked, I was excited to see this name. I mean, Vlatko Andonovski has never said she was out of the picture,
That's
or
true.
he has always said, when media has asked him, who else are you in talks with? What about Julie Ertz? Over the last year, I'm going to say at least, he has been very honest. I'm in communication with her. We are working on her return to the team. When she's ready, we are ready to have those conversations with her. It was very much to him and the U.S. women's national team an open door for Julie Ertz when she was ready to return for those conversations. Not an open door that, hey, she gets a World Cup roster spot, but an open door to have those conversations if she wants to return. And I think being very honest from Vlatko Andonovski with the media and with the public, and saying that she wasn't out of the question and that they have been having those conversations. And we know he has conversations with a lot of different players about their recovery and coming back and their commitment. And the fact that she has been training with MLS Academy players. She was cleared by her doctor, by the U.S. Women's National Team doctor, and that the conversation did ultimately come down to she has to be playing on a club team to be part of this deal. And I think that helps answer a lot of questions for some people that are like, well, she is unattached. She hasn't signed. But the fact that there is that kind of contingent factor for her is promising to see, because to me, like, there are the elements of, I mean, a lot of people are asking, even in our chat right now, like, okay, what about all the players that have been trying to get in those roles? Sam Coffey, Jalen Howe. We saw Savannah DeMello even get called into these camps. Christy Mewis played in that 6. What about those players? But the fact that he's now saying, okay, you have to play on a club team in order to get yourself back into that, it's equaling the playing field at this point to all of those players. And that's, to me, the comparison between a Julie Ertz and an Andy Sullivan and a Sam Coffey is a different story and a different conversation.
No, I hear you. So if that's where like the next phase of this convo around Ertz's return, if that's where we're at, like if we're laying out like hypotheticals, like if we're looking at this point, April, and the build up to a World Cup in July, if the energy, or if the question is, where is the fitness at? Where is the ability at? How does a player fit in tactically? And you're looking at the midfield core specifically, even narrowing that lens even further to the defensive 6 role. If you're looking at the players who are technically among that core that we've seen, it's mostly been Andy Sullivan. We have briefly, very briefly, let's be real here, She's been called into camps. We have not seen Sam Coffey get extended
No,
minutes
no.
in that role, despite her getting call-ins to the national team. Taylor Korniak has been utilized there in a surprise, for the new year in 2023. And most recently, we saw Kristen Mewis put in a really good shift during She Believes Cup as well. So if you're looking at those players at the time, these usual suspects that we have sort of seen called into these camps over the course of the last 18 months or so. And now we see the reintegration of Julie Ertz. If it's this close to the World Cup,
Mm-hmm.
is it more about going with the inexperienced player that might be 90 to 100%, or the more experienced player that could possibly be at 75%?
Yeah. I mean, this is all contingent on actually seeing Ertz play. I'm putting a disclaimer out there on my
Yeah.
next statement. I haven't seen her play. We will in the next coming weeks. Maybe my opinion will change, but a 60% Julie Ertz is going to be more effective on and off the pitch than a 90 to 100% Sam Coffey at this point. And I am someone that is incredibly high on Sam Coffey. I think the future is very bright for Coffey. I think there is a spot on this roster for Sam Coffey down the line. She's incredibly young. She is just entering her second professional year, only her second year playing that position, the defensive six role. She did not play that in college at Penn State. Meanwhile, Julie Ertz is someone that yes, perhaps at 60%, 70%, you're not going to get as much of an Ertz as you would in the 2015 World Cup, but we didn't see her play 100% during the Olympics.
Yeah.
We did not see Julie Ertz play 100% for one single minute during the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. And the experience that Julie Ertz brings on the pitch, winning 2 World Cups, that winning experience is you cannot argue with that. That is something that is completely necessary and invaluable to this team. Meanwhile, she also was on the 2021 Olympics roster that struggled. She was on the team as they struggled through the Olympics, as they won bronze, and was a massive accomplishment for them to even win bronze at that point when the rest of the world was saying, hey, why aren't you winning gold? That adversity that she faced being on that team is also invaluable experience that you cannot teach anyone. You cannot even replicate that for anyone unless they've been in that position. So to me, those intangibles that Julie Ertz has and that she has been through makes her more of an asset and more valuable to this United States women's national team.
I mean, look, it's gonna be something that we're gonna get a chance to keep an eye on. Out of media saying that she's been going through training, going through return to play process, rehabilitating, trying to get back into form post pregnancy, working with MLS academies. Apparently, this is something else that came out of the press conference earlier, but there still hasn't been a public, I guess, viewing of professional domestic club minutes
Right.
and I think there's some jury that might be out. I guess if we're looking at recency, it's I think for the general public it's a lot of what have you done for me lately, and despite Julie Ertz having this incredible resume, it hasn't been that case for the last couple of years. So it's not, I don't think it's like something that's resonating right now.
And also, I think another level of this that people really have to realize and try to see all perspectives of this is Vlatko Andonovski is still trying to find someone to own that defensive midfield 6 role. And Andi Sullivan is who he's putting a lot of his chips into, but she hasn't done that yet for him or for this team. And perhaps bringing a Julie Ertz into camp during these April friendlies, just a few months out from the World Cup, he very well may know she's not going to start a game, or she may not even get significant minutes, but her being there is going to be a kick in the behind to Andi Sullivan to say, your spot's on the line. We're going to level up the competition. I mean, iron sharpens iron, Sandra. You say that all the time. And perhaps that's a mindset as well for this one. Bring in one of the best defensive holding midfielders that this team has seen in recent history and see how that elevates the team overall and makes the competition for that 6 midfield position even harder.
No, I'm with you. It's also, we're talking a lot about, familiarity versus unfamiliarity. And you know what? It's It's just not. Again, whether if you're following this team recently or if you're someone like us who's followed them for quite an extended period of time, this part actually isn't unfamiliar. It's not shocking or unsurprising to me. This is an I feel statement for me to see the return of some of these players after long extended periods of time away from the team. This is not uncommon for this national team program to reintegrate veteran players into the mix in the buildup just months away from a World Cup. Because at this point, you know what you know and you have seen what you've seen. At this point, you're going to start bringing in people who have that experience, who you can sort of task them with something and you know you're going to trust them to go and execute it. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's not uncommon. So Julie Ertz, I think, is obviously the big name on this one in terms of who is getting back into these national teams camps, but she's not the only one.